Zog the Heilige Gemara. If for Hermes, Ime de Shvar Malka, she was the mother of Shvar Malka, a Persian king, and Shadra Arba Meya Dinri, Lekamei Rabami, she sent 400 dinarim to Rabami to disperse to tzedakah. Rabami refused to take it because he didn't want to give her the source of tzedakah, as we'll soon see. So Jinu Kamei Rabba, so she sent it to Rabba. The Kablinu and Rabba did accept it. Because he didn't want to get into a fight by disrespecting the Malchus. Shama Rabami. Rabami heard that Rabba accepted the money that he didn't. Ikbid, he was upset. Amr, he told Rabba, Leslie, or he said regarding Rabba, Leslie, Yavish Ketzirati Shavarna, when a plant gets wilted and dried out, it could break very easily, and therefore Noshim boys Mirzaisa. Women can come and destroy it very easily. So too, when Goyim, Rishoyim use up their schusim, it's easy for them to be destroyed. By you giving the mother of Shurmalka an opportunity to give tzedakah, you're in fact lengthening their survival and their success. So you did an outlet. But Rabba did it because he didn't want to get into trouble with the king. Frank the Gemara, Ami Nami Mishum Shalom Achas. Why didn't he agree that would be a concern? You shouldn't have given that money to Yidden and giving her that schos. You should have given that money, you should have dispensed it only to Goyim. Nami. That's exactly what Rava did. Rava did exactly that. He only gave it to Goyim. Rabami de Ikbid. So why did Rabami get upset? Who the loy saimua kamei? Let's turn on to the Teiz Daf Yud Aleph Amar Aleph. They didn't tell Ravami the whole story. They told Ravami just that Rava accepted, but they didn't tell Ravami that Rava only gave it out to Goyim. So you might ask, Rava took it because of Shloi Malchus. Why didn't Rav Ami accept it because of Shloi Malchus? So the Mefarshim tell us that Rav Ami didn't live in the same zone as Rava did. So Rav Ami didn't need to be worried about Shloi Malchus. Now, we learned on Daf Ches about Rabbi Yosef. He was also sent by this woman money, but she told him, I want you to use it for mitzvah rabbah. And the Gemara tells us there that he had to use it for pidyon shvuyim of Yidden. Why didn't he use it also for pidyon shvuyim of Goyim? Just like over here they gave it to tzedakah of Goyim. The teretz is mitzvah rabbah pidyon shvuyim. She was under the impression that they were going to give it to Yidden. So if he would have diverted it to Goyim, that would be considered Genevas Das. And Genevas Das is even also for a Goy. Over here, why wasn't it Genevas Das by giving it to Aniyim that were Goyim? The teretz is because even the Kupas Tzedakah of Yidden, we actually give Goyim Tzedakah as well because of Darkei Shalom. So when she gave the money to Rava to dispense to Aniyim, she knew that a portion of that money was going to go to Goyim because that is the normal way how the Kupa of Tzedakah is dispensed. Therefore, it wouldn't have been Genevas Das to give all of the money to the Goyim. Zok Gemara Baita, Tanya we learned Brayso. It was said on Binyamin Atzadik. He was responsible to dispense the tzedakah. Pamachas one day, a woman came to him in a hungry year. She said, Rebbe, Parnas Seini, give me parnaso, give me food. Told her, I can promise you, our resources are completely depleted. We have nothing for you. She told him, Rebbe, if you won't take care of me, a woman and 7 children are going to die of hunger. So Amad Uparnis Shaloi, right away he took his own money and gave it to her. Liyamim, it didn't take too long. Chola Binyamin Atali got sick, but not the Lamus, and it looked like he wasn't going to make it. Amru Malachi Asharis Lufnakadush Baruch Hu, the Malachim told her Rebbeinu Shalom. Ata Marta, you said to Kol Makayim Nefesh Achas Mi Yisrael Kilukayim Ha'olam Malay, U'b'nyamin HaTzadik, Shehekya Isha V'Shiva Vanel, Yomis, B'Shonim U'Ata, Yisalolu, he should die at this young age. Miyad Korah Gzardina, they tore up the Gzardina B'nyamin HaTzadik. Tana, we learned, V'Sifu Loi, Eser Mishtayim Shana Al Shnoisa. They added 22 years. So there's many questions on this Gemara. The first question is, why did she say Parnas say need? Only take care of me. Why didn't she ask that he should be Mefarnas her and her family? And even at the end, it may not be Mefarnas say need. You seemed never to be asking for children. So the Mefarshim tell us that, in fact, she didn't want money for food. She didn't want a handout. She wanted him either to give her money or to lend her money to start a business so that she could become financially independent and support her own children. And that's what she was asking. Then the question arises, the Marsha asks, why wouldn't Binyamin HaTzadik have given her the money right away? If he had money, why did he wait for her to tell him that she's about to die? He should have given the money right away. Zok the Marsha, he was also very doch. He barely had enough money for his family. And we know, but that's if it's just struggling. Now she upped the ante. Now she said she's going to die if he doesn't give her the money. That's a whole different story. That's doicha hitzchayecha. And therefore, he gave her the money that was the Mesiras Nefesh that he needed for his family. Okay. Now the question is, why did he get 22 years? Where's the 22 years from? So some of the Mepharshim say that 22 is the amount of letters in the Jewish alphabet, in the alphabet. And that's like an olam mole, because the world is created with alphabets. So 22 years represents the olam mole that Binyamin HaTzadik saved by saving Nefesh Achas Misra. Tanu Rabbanan, Ma'aseh b'Munbaz HaMelech. Munbaz HaMelech was the son of Hilani HaMalka, Fusion Malka from Beis Chashmonoi. They had multi-generational wealth that built and grew. And he opened up all the storehouses to give away everything he had in a bad year. His brother, his brother and his family said, how could you do that? Our fathers added to the accumulated wealth to build more and more, and we have now generational wealth for multiple generations. We're huge, and you're in one fell swoop going to wipe it all out. He told them, there's many reasons why what I'm doing is the best thing to do with her money. They only put away money at the bottom over here. I put away up there. And Rashi says the money is watched much better by the Rebbeinu Nishkaf. We just looked at. So it's in a very good place, and we're investing in a very good place. We're gonna get paid back. Next, where did our fathers put the money away? Here in the storehouse. That could technically be robbed. Nobody could take away money that's in the storehouse of the Rebbeinu Shalom. This is underneath the Rebbeinu Shalom's Kisei HaKavod. No one's breaking in to the throne room of the Rebbeinu Shalom and stealing money from underneath the Kisei HaKavod. Our fathers put away money that doesn't make pairs. Amru Tzadik Hitoiv Li, Amru Tzadik Hitoiv, Ki Pri Malaleim Yoichelu, meaning, I'm going to have all of the benefits of the money that I gave away, but Oichel Perisem by Lamazeh, I'm also going to benefit from it in Lamazeh. Avoid gone to Oitris Mammon. Our ancestors put away storehouses of money. And I put away in storage warehouses of nefashos. As it says in the pasuk, Shenema pri tzadik eitz chaim v'lakech nefashos chacham. Avoid gonzu lacher. Our fathers put away money for future generations. They weren't going to benefit from it. It was for their children and their grandchildren. But I put away something that's going to be there for me. They only put away money that will be helpful in Olam Hazeh. And I put away something that's in Olam Haba. Now we're going to get back to the lumdus of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that when are you going to be included in the security levy for your city? That's if you live there 12 months. However, if you bought a home in the city, you're instantly levied. The Mishnah is not consistent with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The Tanya we learned Reb Shimon ben Gamliel even if you didn't buy a house, you just bought a tiny little piece of property, you're also going to be in the levy. Frank the Gemara, is that what Reb Shimon said? Even a tiny property? But Tanya Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Leimer imkana shem sham karka haru'uyel beis dira harayu kan she'ir. Only if you bought a property big enough to build a home. So it's a contradiction in Reb Shimon ben Gamliel himself. So Gemara trei tanoi ba'liba Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. In fact, there's a machlokes tanoim about what Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said. One sheet that says karka kolshu, and the other sheet that is karka big enough to build a house. And our Mishnah says dafka if you bought a house itself. Zok the Mishnah, which we already learned because it was quoted earlier in the parak. Normally, if we have a big chotzer b'shutvis, I have a right to demand from my partner, I want to split it in half. Build a wall. But if it's a very small chotzer, where we each wouldn't get 4 amos, then I don't have a right to force it. If you remember, we had 2 ways to learn our Mishnah at the beginning. And the nafkamina between the 2 ways was whether or not you have a raya of hezek riyish and hezek rinim. And one pshat was, if I asked my friend, would you be willing to make a wall? And he agreed, the Mishnah is discussing what type of wall we have to make. That would support the shita of hezek riyah, lav shmei hezek. But there was another way to learn the Mishnah, where it means that if we both agreed to split the karka, then automatically I have to build a wall. With that mahalach, we did have a right from a Mishnah that hezek riyah shmei hezek. And that's relevant to our Mishnah because it says in kolkadus achochache arba masozeh ba'arba masozeh. If there wasn't, then only if they agree will they split the chotzer. Lois asada, they don't split asada. Achieba tisha kavin lozeh, tisha kavin lozeh. You have to be able to plant 9 kavin on either side. Rabbi Yomer achieba tisha bas tishas chatzoi kavin lozeh, tishas chatzei kavin lozeh. You don't have to be able to plant 9 kavin on each side. Even 4.5 kavin is enough to split. Now we're going to see in the Gemara. It depends on if there's value to planting such a small amount to the person who owns the field. So the question is, what is the minimum field necessary that it would still be worth it to cultivate? Veloyas hagina, a garden, or like a vegetable garden, I can't force you to split. There should be enough to plant in a half a kav. Base roiva. He argues on how big a sod has to be, and he said the sod has to be a base roiva. Below is the traklin. If you have a beautiful mansion, you don't split that in half. Below is a moyer in a different type of mansion. Below is a shoyve, which is like a place where they raise chickens. Below is a talis, a beged, you don't split in half. Below is a merchatz, a bathhouse. Below is base abad, which would be an oil press. Below is base hashlochin, and not a field that has a ma'ayin in it, that has its own spring. Unless there's enough that each person can cultivate it properly. This shita is arguing on the shitas earlier of how big a field has to be. One said tisha kabin, one said tisha chatzoi kabin, one said roiva, and now the Mishnah says no. If it's a base hashlochin, even a smaller piece of property would be worth cultivating because you have water right there. Zok the Gemara, Zaklal, this is the rule. Kol sheyichalek u'shmoy alav, as long as if you split it, it still is identified as a field that can have its same purpose. You can force your partner to split. If not, you cannot force your partner to split. Amosai Bisman changed name Roitim. That's if only one wants to, he wants to force his partner. But you have two consenting adults. Whatever they agree upon between themselves is acceptable. The only thing that they can't agree upon, even if they both want to split it, are kisvei hakodesh. Like I say for Torah, we can't cut a sefer Torah in half. Even if they want to cut it in half, that is not allowed. This is that we say that each partner in the chutzner have to have 4 amis. That's chutz mishal psachim. The halacha was in those days. Let's say someone brings a donkey loaded up with product that he just bought. Now he doesn't take the donkey into his house and unload the donkey. He has to unload the donkey outside. He needs a driveway. So automatically, each home, for every doorway that it has, gets a piece of property, a driveway, that's the width of their door, that's 4 amos long. So that's exclusive to each house. When we say in order to split the property, each side has to have 4 amos, that's in addition to the 4 amma driveway that each one has that exclusively services their home. Tanya Amirochli, Ein Cholkin is a Chotzer, Achi Heba, Shmoina Amos Lazeh, Shmoina Amos Lazeh, which is contradictory to our Mishnah. Aiva Nantan Arba Amos Lazeh, Arba Amos Lazeh, El Shmami No, Rabasi Shmami No. It proves Rabasi. The Mishnah that says 8 amos means the 4 amos of my driveway plus an additional 4 amos. Zok to Gemara, there was another way that this same Gemara, all the same information was quoted but presented in a different fashion. Instead of it being presented with Rabasi first saying the halacha, it was presented that we first had a stira. Vika de Ramilo, Mirma, Tanan and Chalkin is a Chater, Achi Bo Arba Amos Lazeh, Arba Amos Lazeh. Frank the more about Tanya, Shmoy Namis Lazeh, Shmoy Namis Lazeh, Amar Basi Rabbi Yochanan, Arba Amos Shamru is Chut Mishal Psachim. Gewaltig. One thing I want to shut off this ringer because it is getting in the way. Zok the head of the more weiter. Amar Basi Rabbi Yochanan, Arba Amos Shamru Chut Mishal Psachim. Amar Abuna, Chotzer Mischalekas Lefi Psachim. What happens if Yaakov has a nice property, a big chutzner, with 2 houses in it? One house has 1 doorway, and the other house has 2 doors. And he leaves the house with 2 doors to Reuven, and he leaves the house with 1 door to Shimon. Zok Rav Huna, the father didn't say how to split the chutzner. He just said, you get this house and you get that house. So the halach is, chutzner mischalek l'fi psachah. There's 3 doors, 2 in Reuven's house and 1 in Shimon's house. So you split the chutzner by 3, Reuven will get 2/3, and Shimon will only get 1/3. That is Reb Huna Shita. Reb Chista Amar, no. Every door gets the 4 amma driveway. But Vashar, the rest of the property, Cholkin B'Shav is split equally between Reuven and Shimon. Tanya Kabasei Reb Chista, we learned the Mishnah that supports Reb Chista. Psachim Shebechotzer, Yesh Lam Arba Amayis. Hayel Zeh Pesach Echad. Lozeh Shnei Psachim. So that clearly supports Reb Chista's position. What if one door was huge? It was 8 amos wide. So the halacha is he gets those 8 amos for his driveway, and he also gets the 4 amos in the chutz. Frankly, why should he get up as 4 amos in the chutz? Why would he get that? It means he gets 8 amos wide, but how deep? 4 amos. They used to create a little pit in their chutzner, and in the pit they would throw pits. They would throw date pits, and those were used as Michael Behem. So what if I'm in a chutzner with somebody else, and I have a pit a pit. The loch is I get full access to my pit. Yesh le arba amos l'chol ruach. I have 4 amos all the way around the pit to bring animals there, to dump in there. But that's only if it wasn't very close to the door of my house, or I just step out of my house and it's right there. But if it was at the door of my house, and I could just step out of my house and it's right there, let's turn on to a few dollars on the base. Because that will be your way to access this pit. You shouldn't have to walk around. Amar Puna, Achsadra. An Achsadra is like a gazebo. It has a ceiling but no walls. Eino dalalamas. There you don't get dalalamas. You don't get a driveway in front of it to unload your animal. Time am I? We should pirk masoi. Why in a bias do you get 4 amas in front of the door for a driveway? Because you need to unload. You can't unload inside your house. But since it has no walls, you can easily bring your animal inside and unload it there. And there's another point that's going to come out clear in the Gemara, and that is, it's not just because the animal can get in because there's no walls. It's also because a place with no walls is generally a place that you're not going to keep your personal stuff in. It's going to be left empty and available to load and unload in, because no one's going to keep their private personal items as they would keep in their house in an open gazebo. So, so why don't you have to give Dalai Lamas by Nachsadra? Because you can unload your animal inside. Mazar Rab Sheshes, Echad Shari Botim, Be'echad Shari Achsadra Ois, Yeshon Dalai Lamas. So you see, even in Nachsadra gets Dalai Lamas. So it's a stira. It's shver on what we just said, what Rafuna just said. Gemara, Ki Tanya Hi B'Achsadra Devei Rav. It's not a regular wide open Achsadra. Rav's Achsadra was completely walled in, except it has very big windows in the walls. So that's all walled in. That's a place that you're going to use for your stuff. You can't bring your animal in there to unload. Frank Lamar, if that's the case, then it's like a regular house. Achsadra Devei Rav. Pshita, it's poshut that it has 4 amas in Drunim Aliyah, which is a regular house. Ella, the brisa that's telling you a chiddush that an achsadra gets 4 amas is b'achsadra remaisa. Achsadra remaisa only has half walls. And therefore, it's a stickle open. So you might think it's open, and therefore people don't keep stuff there. Their personal items that they would normally keep inside their house, so therefore they could unload their animals there. The mashlan they can't. And therefore they get 4 amas in front of the doorway. Taner Rabbanan. Beishar, a beishar is a little hut that you build in front of your door. Echsadra, which we know that is the gazebo. Umerpeset. What is a merpeset? Anybody ever went to a cheap motel as they're driving down the thruway, down the 17, and they're trying to get to New York, and their eyelids are getting so heavy they can barely keep their eyes open? We need to stop at the next motel because I cannot drive another 10 minutes. So they pull into a sleazebag motel, and everyone knows the sleazebag motels don't have an interior corridor with rooms on both sides. On the main floor, there's a whole bunch of doors to go into rooms, and then there's a porch. So there's one staircase that goes up to a porch, and the porch goes along the whole hotel. And along that porch, you also have a whole bunch of doors to enter into the individual hotel rooms. So an achsadra is exactly that. It's a second floor porch with one staircase to the floor that services 5-6 apartments, 5-6 doors up there. So the halacha is yesh and daled amos. They also get daled amos, meaning at the bottom of the staircase they have daled amos to load and unload. What if there's 5 hotel rooms up there? You're only going to give them 1 parking spot at the bottom of the stairs? Yep. What about a little alternative? What if you had a chicken coop, up against the wall of your chutzner? The door to the chicken coop, do you have clearance of dalaramas in front of it? Amalei, time of mine, why do we normally give dalaramas in front of a house? Because you have to be able to unload your load properly. But also, the chickens don't need 4 amas to get in. Metapas boy, metapas b'yair, they can hop on in from anywhere. They can come from above or below. They don't need a proper grand entrance. How about bayis chotche mukura b'chotche mukura? You had a house. Part of it had a roof over it, and part of it didn't have a roof. So the part that doesn't have a roof, you're not really going to keep stuff there. You should be able to unload there. So what would be the halacha? Zog to Gemara, yesh lo dollar amos or ein dollar amos. Amar loy ein loy. Rav Nachman doesn't have dollar amos. Loy mi boy kiriyah milagav. It's pashit if the part of your house that had a roof was further in. So when you're coming from the street, you enter into a place where there's no roof. And if you go further towards the back, that's where the roof is. So there for sure, you can come in first to the part that doesn't have a roof, unload over there. You mamish have your own little courtyard. That's the island of a fire. Even if when you walk in from the chutzner, the first section of the house you walk into has a roof, which is where you would keep your private stuff. But if you go further back, you'll get into the rear part of the house that doesn't have a roof. You bring your donkey through your living room. You try that at home. Bring your donkey through the living room to the kitchen and go out the back door. And there you can unload. Umafar. Rav Huna Rav Ami. Rav Huna asked Rav Ami the following shayla. Echad mibnei movoi shebikash lachshav pitzchoi l'movoi yachid. You have houses in the movoi, and the back of the house backed onto another movoi, and you wanted to open yourself up a gate, a door, to be able to access the other movoi as well. So the law is b'nei movoi ma'akvin halava ein ma'akvin. Could the people of the movoi protest and stop him? And there's a shayla who would have the issue. There are those who learn the other movie has an issue because we don't want now new people having access to our movie. The other proportion learn no, it's the people in our movie that have the problem. Because if you open up an opening to next to our movie, now there's a whole new way to get into our movie, and people are going to start coming into our movie. So both sides really could have a reason to object. So they want to know, can you be ma'akav or not? Amar lei, Rabbi Ami answered back, and they movie ma'akv. Yes, they could stop him from opening up that door. Achsanyo. And achsanyo is when an army came to a city, they would freeload on the city, and the people of the city would have to provide them with whatever they needed to survive. So the question is, how do you split the load? How do you share the burden amongst the people in this city? Is it the fi b'nei adam ischalekes? Every person has to contribute an equal amount. So a larger family would have a bigger burden. Or no, is it per household? It's per person. We learned another halacha. Everybody throws their zevel out, and it's good for fertilizer. So mischalekas will flip sachem. Every door gets an equal amount of zevel. Achsanya lefi b'nei adam. But if it's the zevel of an achsanya, it is according to how many people there is. It's either that, or it could be also referring to their responsibility to support. Zog to Gemara Vayta. Amar Avuna. Echad mebnei movi shabikas listim keneged pischoi. One of the bnei movi wanted to build a wall, a little booth, on the outside of the door, which would partially obstruct the movi. So the law is bnei movi makvin alav. The bnei movi could say, no, you can't build an obstruction on movi, because now you're going to reduce the width of our movi. Shemar b'lem seder. Now if I want to go straight to the back of the movi, I'm going to have to go around. So we could stop him. Major break the Gemara. What if you had chamesh chatzeres pesuchos lemovi? So what we just learned from Rav Huna was anybody in a movi can protest that this is in my way. So let's think a second. When you're in a movi, imagine you're coming in from the Rosh Hashanah, and you have a long road, let's say 50 feet long by 15 feet wide, and there's 3 doorways on the right and 3 doorways on the left that feed into the chatzer. So the halacha is, no matter which doorway I'm in, if I wanted to build a little butkala, everybody in the mavoi can prevent me from doing it because it obstructs their way. But if you think about it for a second, what if I was in all the way in the back door? If I'm all the way in the back door, why should it concern the people who are in the front? They have no business going back there. I only need access there to get into my door. You have no business to get back there because your doors are further closer towards the street. But we know Rav Ami Paskin that doesn't make a difference. Where I am in the Mavi, I can protest you from making destruction. And that the Gemara has a kasha. Chamesh chatzeres psuchas l'Mavi. Everybody has access to the Mavi in front of the outermost doorways because they have to get through there to get further back to theirs. But the outermost doors, they only have a right to their area towards the outside of the Mavi, towards the Rosh Hashanah. But they have no right to keep stuff and to occupy anything deeper in, because that's only for the people who live in deeper. Vashar everybody else who are deeper in the Mavi have a right even to the space of the second door, up until the back. Vashnia, the second door, was a little bit further from the street. They have a right to go through the first area and the second area to get to their doorways. Nimtzes, penimis mishtameshes la'atzma, u'mishtameshes in kol achas v'achas, which means the doorways all the way in the back, they can access their own Mavi in front of their doors, but they also can access the rest of the Mavi up until the Rosh Hashanah. Well, the older ones can't. So the kasha here is, how come Rabbi said anybody in the Mavi can protest? It should only be somebody who's deeper in the Mavi than the person who's building the obstruction. But people who are further to the Rosh Hashanah, they should have no right to object if somebody wants to build an obstruction that was deeper into the interior of the Mavi. So in fact, you're right, Tanoi, it's a machlokes Tanoim, whether or not people who are closer to Rosh Hashanah also have a right to access the whole Mavi even in the back, and therefore they can object to an obstruction that's either further back. The Tananya we learned. Echad mebnei Mavi shabikas lahachzer pischoi l'Mavi acher. A guy in the Mavi wanted to open up his door to another Mavi. We had this page just a moment ago. The people of the Mavi could say, no, we don't want you opening up from your house into a new Mavi. What if he once had an opening to another Mavi? And you see the doorway, but it was bricked in. So then he retained his right to open up that doorway again, because he once had that doorway. Then ein b'nei Mavi ma'akvano. Divrei Rebbe, this is the sheet of Rebbe. Now we're going to learn Reb Shimon ben Elazar, who's supposed to be arguing on Rebbe, but he's going to be talking about something completely different. So the Gemara is going to ask, there's a disconnect here. Wow, Reb Shimon ben Elazar is commenting on Rebbe talking about apples, and Reb Shimon ben Elazar is talking about oranges. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Eimer, Chamesh Chatzeres HaPsuchos L'Mavi, Kula Mishtamshes B'Mavi Zu Im Zu. Anybody in the Mavi has a right to any part of the Mavi. Frank the Gemara Chatzeres Man Chashamayim. Who is talking about Chatzeres in the Mavi that Reb Shimon ben Elazar talks about? Rebbe wasn't even talking about it. Zok the Gemara, it must be the Chesur Mechser. It must be that we're missing the second halacha that Rebbe discussed. And it's the second halacha that Rebbe discussed that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is commenting. V'achiyatani. V'chein chamesh chatzeres. Rebbe also said another halacha. Chamesh chatzeres hapsuchos l'mavoi kulon nishtamshes im achitzoyna achitzoyna mishtameshes la'atzma. Rebbe holds that the people who are closest to the Rosh Hashanah in that Mavi have no right to going deeper in the Mavi. But the people over at the back of the Mavi have rights to the whole Mavi because they need to go through the whole Mavi to get to their Chatzar. That's the very Rebbe. Shimon Lazoimer, Chomesh, Ketzeres, Tapsuches, Lamavi, Kula, Mishtamshes, Lamavi, they all have equal use. So Rabbi Amiyu said that anybody could protest if someone wants to build a structure out in the Mavi. He would be going according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar, who holds that everybody in the Mavi has equal access to the entire Mavi. Baruch Hashem, we were zeicha to finish Daf Yud Aleph of Masechus Bava Basra. Hashem, tomorrow we'll do Daf Yud Beis. I just want to point out that today, Lamed Sivan, is the date where Rahman al-Itzlan, the Air France plane, was hijacked to Entebbe when it departed Athens towards the final leg of its journey to Paris. And this coming Shabbos, which will be Zion Tammuz, was a day of great nitzachon to Klal Yisrael, because that's when they were victorious, Eretz Yisrael was victorious in freeing and retrieving almost all the hostages, two of Rahman Torah Nifter, as well as the commander of the mission, Bibi Netanyahu's brother, fun, but in general, it's a massive nice nigla. Now we're going through terrible chores. We have hostages. We have soldiers that are getting killed, getting injured, and away from their families. We have hundreds of thousands of people who are displaced. Just like you showed us tremendous rachamim back then, and you gave us a nice nigla that was talked about, and there's a Kiddush Shem Shemaim all over the world. Who I did we should resolve to see great nisim now in this season, this week. The Klal Yisrael should have a big issue. A